Most people assume that when we die, we are quickly reborn. A soul leaves the body, enters a spiritual realm, and shortly after, returns in a new life to continue its karmic journey. But Helena Blavatsky, the powerful voice behind modern Theosophy, offered a deeper and more sobering truth. Not all souls reincarnate immediately. Some remain in limbo, not punished, but paused, held in a space between lives, not by external forces, but by inner conditions. These conditions include unresolved karma, spiritual inertia, or even the soul's own failure to evolve. According to Blavatsky, the cycle of rebirth is not a machine. It's a spiritual system guided by law, vibration, and readiness. Just as a seed cannot bloom until the soil is ready, a soul cannot return until certain energies are balanced. This delay can last years, decades, even centuries in Earth time. And in some cases, the soul's very evolution is at stake. In this video, we'll explore why some souls do not reincarnate right away, what karmic and spiritual forces cause this delay, and how Blavatsky explained the hidden dimension of post-death existence. What happens to a soul that's not ready to return? What does it experience while suspended between worlds? And more importantly, what can we learn from those delays in order to live more consciously now? The answers may not only change the way you think about death, but also how you live today. So why would a soul experience a long delay before reincarnation? Blavatsky identified several reasons. The first is karmic complexity. Some lives create such dense entanglements, acts of betrayal, violence, addiction, or deep ignorance, that the soul becomes spiritually heavy. It lacks the vibrational readiness to return. In this case, the soul must pass through states of purification. These are not punishments, but necessary recalibrations. Think of a musical instrument out of tune. It cannot play until it is adjusted. Likewise, a soul filled with unresolved trauma or moral chaos cannot simply dive into a new life. It would carry the dissonance forward, creating more suffering. So, it waits. It heals. The second reason is spiritual inertia. The soul has stopped growing. It clings to old identities, refuses to evolve, or has become spiritually numb. In such cases, the universe withholds the next incarnation as a kind of spiritual timeout. It's as if the soul is placed in a quiet room until it remembers its purpose. And the third reason is what Blavatsky called spiritual failure. This is rare, but serious. It happens when a soul persistently rejects growth over many lives. It resists truth. It harms without remorse. These souls do not descend into eternal hell, but they may remain suspended, disconnected from the evolutionary current. Not erased, but forgotten, left behind by their own doing. To understand the pause between reincarnations, we must first understand the mechanics of death in Blavatsky's cosmology. When the physical body dies, the soul does not simply vanish. Instead, it begins a process of gradual separation from the earthly plane. First, the astral body, the energetic double of the physical, detaches. Then, layer by layer, the soul sheds what Blavatsky called the lower principles of the human being. The desires, the personal ego, and the mental impressions tied to material existence. What remains is the spiritual essence, the immortal core of consciousness, the monad. This monad carries the karmic blueprint from all past actions and experiences. It enters what Blavatsky described as the devachanic state, a spiritual dimension where the soul processes, digests, and reflects on the previous incarnation. This realm is not physical, nor is it eternal. It is a state of rest, of reward, and of deep psychic digestion. Here, the soul relives the best of what it experienced, its highest joys, deepest truths, and noblest moments. But here's the key. The soul cannot reincarnate until that process is complete. And if the previous life was full of confusion, stagnation, or spiritual regression, the digestion takes longer. The soul must untangle dense karmic threads before it can re-enter the world. This brings us to one of the most haunting aspects of Blavatsky's teachings, the risk of stagnation. Reincarnation is not a guarantee, it is a law. But like all laws, it responds to conditions. The soul must be fit to return. It must have the karmic momentum and the spiritual will to incarnate again. Otherwise, it floats in a kind of twilight state, neither here nor there. Blavatsky described these states in poetic but sobering terms. Some souls drift, trapped in the echoes of their old personalities. They cling to memories, to desires, to guilt. Others are locked in fantasies, unable to see their true nature. Still others wander in shadow realms of confusion, populated by the disembodied thoughts and emotions of unfinished lives. This is not hell, but it is far from peace. The soul is not being punished, but it is not growing either. It is suspended, and time in these realms is not like ours. What feels like decades to us may feel like moments or eternities to a waiting soul. This is why Blavatsky urged every person to live consciously. Every thought we feed, every choice we make, shapes not just our next life, but the space between. The delay is not arbitrary. It is a mirror, a reflection of the inner state we built through our actions, intentions, and spiritual attention. One of the most profound elements in Blavatsky's view of delayed reincarnation is the role of devachan, a state of blissful rest where the soul experiences the noble fruits of its past life. But not all souls reach devachan in the same way. For those who lived a spiritually shallow life, dominated by selfishness or material obsession, the devachanic experience may be vague or even absent. Without enough spiritual substance to reflect upon, the soul hovers in what she called a kamaloka state, a lower astral zone marked by emotional residue. Here, the soul is weighed down by unresolved cravings, shame, or attachments. It's not tormented by demons, but by its own echoes. It replays scenes, relives sensations, and circles around the things it couldn't release in life. This can create a long pause before reincarnation is even possible. In Blavatsky's framework, the soul must fully process both the joy and the pain of its last existence before moving forward. And if it lived a life of illusion, one driven by ego, vice, or pride, it may be forced to confront those illusions in this in-between state. This too takes time. It's not judgment. It's energetic alignment. The soul cannot return to earth until it has burned off the karmic fog that surrounds it. Only then does it vibrate at the right frequency to re-enter the material world with purpose. This pause between lives has another, often overlooked consequence: spiritual amnesia. The longer the delay, the more the soul forgets. Not just the events of its last incarnation, but the essence of its own mission. Blavatsky warned that spiritual forgetfulness is one of the greatest dangers of karmic delay. The soul, caught in cycles of regret or confusion, begins to lose its sense of identity. Its inner flame dims, and when it finally does reincarnate, it may do so in a state of deep spiritual disorientation. The new life begins under the shadow of a lost connection to purpose. It's as if the soul wakes up inside a body, but no longer remembers why it returned. This, Blavatsky taught, is one reason so many people feel a gnawing emptiness or spiritual depression. They are not broken souls, but souls returning after a long delay, still searching for their thread. And here lies the paradox. The longer a soul delays reincarnation, the more difficult the next life may be. Not as punishment, but as a consequence of spiritual disconnection. The lesson is clear: grow now, resolve now, awaken now. Because the soul that delays its evolution will face greater obstacles later. Life is a sacred window, and we must use it with care. So what can we do in this very life to avoid such delay? Blavatsky was firm. Conscious living is the key. We must stop living automatically, drifting from distraction to distraction, reacting without reflection, chasing pleasure while avoiding truth. Every act of mindfulness strengthens the soul's clarity. Every effort to live ethically builds spiritual momentum. These are not abstract virtues. They are fuel for the soul's next return. When we choose compassion over anger, understanding over judgment, silence over noise, we begin to purify our karmic field. We lighten the soul's vibration. This makes the passage through death smoother and the return to life quicker and more intentional. Blavatsky also emphasized the power of self-inquiry. To ask, who am I beneath this body? Why am I here? What patterns am I repeating? These questions, when asked sincerely, awaken the higher self, the monad, which then begins to guide the ego toward alignment. Meditation, study, service, and inner silence. These are the soul's tools. They not only shape this life, but prepare the soul to step confidently into the next. And perhaps most importantly, Blavatsky urged her students to face their darkness, to confront the shadow, because what is not healed now becomes the delay later. The soul that refuses to see its own wounds is the one that wanders longest between lives. Interestingly, Blavatsky did not view reincarnation as a universal experience for all beings at all times. She believed that some souls, especially those nearing the end of the karmic cycle, may spend hundreds of years out of incarnation, waiting for the right moment, the right conditions, or the right opportunity to return with impact. This delay is not a failure, it is a sacred pause. These are advanced souls who no longer need to reincarnate frequently. They come when called, they appear when humanity needs them. These are the teachers, the healers, the visionaries. And on the other side of the spectrum are the souls who cannot reincarnate because they are lost in confusion. They are not ready, not mature, not aligned. Blavatsky warned that the world of spirit is not homogeneous. There are layers, there are levels, and the soul gravitates toward the one it is most attuned to. After death, we do not go to a place, we go to a state, and that state determines how quickly we return, or whether we return at all. The soul that is spiritually awake will reincarnate in a way that serves its mission. The soul that is asleep may drift for ages until it remembers the fire within. Blavatsky also challenged the romantic idea that reincarnation is always a step forward. Some souls reincarnate too soon, driven by unresolved cravings, emotional addiction, or egoic impulse. They re-enter life prematurely. These are the earthbound souls, those who died with unfinished business and rush back without proper integration. Their lives tend to repeat the same patterns, as if they're stuck in a karmic loop. In contrast, the souls who delay from a place of wisdom do so with purpose. They wait until their energy is fully aligned, until their next incarnation can be a meaningful continuation of their path, not a repetition of the past. This distinction is subtle but essential. Not all delay is failure. Not all urgency is progress. True growth requires timing, and the soul, when left undisturbed, knows when the moment is right. Blavatsky taught that even in death, discernment is required. And those who cultivate spiritual discernment in life, through meditation, study, compassion, carry that clarity into the afterlife. They choose their next incarnation consciously. They are not pushed by karma, but pulled by purpose. This is the goal of evolution, not to escape the cycle, but to master it. To return not as a prisoner, but as a pilgrim. Another reason for delayed reincarnation lies in the soul's need for rest. Earthly life is intense. It's a crucible of emotion, conflict, and physical struggle. After lifetimes of suffering or intense spiritual work, a soul may need a long pause simply to restore its inner equilibrium. In Devachan, the soul enters a state of blissful dreaming, not illusion, but synthesis. Here, the best of its life is relived, magnified, and absorbed. This rest nourishes the soul for the road ahead. However, if the soul resists re-entry out of fear, attachment to pleasure, or reluctance to face karma, the pause becomes stagnation. That fine line between sacred rest and spiritual avoidance is one of the great mysteries of the in-between realms. Blavatsky's work invites us to ask, what is my soul resting from? What am I avoiding? What am I preparing for? If the answer is unconsciousness, addiction, or despair, then delay is a warning. But if the answer is integration, service, or preparation, then delay becomes sacred timing. She reminded us that the soul is not a passive traveler. It is a conscious being. And we, here and now, are shaping how that soul moves through the dimensions to come. In her writings, Blavatsky hinted that even collective karma can affect the timing of reincarnation. Some souls are held back because the world they are meant to enter is not yet ready. A society may be too chaotic, too violent, too unripe for their purpose. So they wait, not out of personal failure, but out of planetary misalignment. These souls return in waves. When the human condition begins to shift, they incarnate en masse, bringing with them new consciousness. Blavatsky believed that such waves of reincarnating souls help usher in spiritual revolutions. They are the carriers of light in dark times. But again, not all are ready. Some stay behind, trapped in the karmic residue of personal pain or global trauma. They are not punished. They are simply waiting for the world, and themselves, to change. This vision offers a larger context for human suffering. Perhaps those who seem spiritually absent today are souls returning after long delays, still struggling to remember. Perhaps the rise in spiritual hunger is not a trend, but a sign. Many souls are waking up after being asleep between lifetimes. And with awakening comes urgency, a desire not to waste another life. The most important message in all of this is simple. The soul is never forgotten. Even when delayed, even when confused, even when lost in shadow, the spark of the divine remains. Blavatsky did not believe in hopeless souls. She believed in forgotten ones, and she believed in the power of remembrance. That is what spiritual practice is, a form of remembering. Remembering that you are more than this body, more than this life, more than this moment. When we remember, we become conscious co-creators of our destiny, and we help others do the same. Blavatsky called this the great work, the effort to evolve not just individually, but collectively, to bring light to the hidden places, to awaken souls caught in delay, to break cycles not through force but through wisdom and compassion. And this work begins now, in your choices, in your thoughts, in how you respond to life. Because what you do today becomes the bridge your soul walks across tomorrow. So if you're listening to this now, consider it a sign. Your soul is not asleep. It is remembering, and with that remembrance comes responsibility. The way you live now determines the quality, clarity, and timing of your next life. If you live in fear, avoidance, or unconscious repetition, you may create the very delays Blavatsky warned about. But if you choose awareness, courage, and integrity, even in small ways, you are preparing a faster return, a more luminous path. Reincarnation is not something that just happens to you. It's something you participate in. You are shaping your soul's journey in every moment. This is why spiritual failure is not just about sin. It's about forgetfulness. When we forget who we are, we get lost. When we remember, we return. The soul that delays may one day become the soul that guides, if it finds the light again. And that light is found not in the heavens, but in the choices you make when no one is watching. Blavatsky's voice continues to echo because her message is timeless. Live now with the awareness of eternity. Every lifetime is a gift, every soul is sacred, and every delay is a wake-up call. If you feel disconnected, numb, or lost, don't despair. Ask what your soul is waiting for. Ask what truth you've avoided, what lesson you've postponed, what pattern you've repeated. And then, change course, begin again. The universe is always listening, and karma is not a prison. It is a compass. It points you toward your next step, your next healing, your next becoming. The greatest tragedy is not death, it is delay. A soul that refuses to grow today delays not only its return, but its fulfillment. But a soul that chooses awareness becomes unstoppable. You don't have to remember all your past lives. You just have to remember this. You are eternal, and the time is now. In the silence between incarnations, a soul waits. Not because it is punished, not because it is forgotten, but because something within still needs to awaken. This is the sacred pause, the moment before rebirth, the breath before the plunge. Helena Blavatsky showed us that this pause is not to be feared, it is to be understood. Some souls return quickly, full of clarity and momentum. Others must wait, drift, and remember. What separates them is not luck, but awareness. The soul that delays its evolution today will carry that burden into the next life. But the soul that embraces its growth now creates a path of light forward. You are not bound to cycles of suffering. You are not trapped. You are a participant in your own return. And even if you have forgotten your purpose, it is not lost. It sleeps inside you, waiting for your call. So ask the deeper questions. Live as if your choices echo beyond this life, because they do. And if ever you feel yourself drifting, call yourself back. Back to presence, back to growth, back to the fire of your eternal nature. The universe waits for no one, but it welcomes all who remember. Your soul does not need more time, it needs truth. And truth begins now.